Okay, welcome back. We're talking about the high and low level versions of the APT commands. So we've been using APT get, which is a low level command just because I prefer it. In all those cases where we've done, we could have just said APT, but I say APT get because I'm just used to doing it that way. So there's an APT cache and lots of other things in there. If you go look at the man pages, tons of APT dashes. One of the ones we're going to talk about is the Debian package, the I can't say this, DPKG. So, if I want to see if something is installed, I'm just going to do, let's do DPG, oh man. So, DPKG, okay, that's that. So if I do the -L option, it's going to give me all of the packages that are basically here. So it basically tells me, well, if you look at the, well, I guess we could go to the man page, but it talks about whether or not it's installed and whether or not it's prepped but not installed and all these rest of these things. So you'll see the tree command up there. Cool. That's the one we added. Remember that? So I'm just going to do that again because this time I'm going to say tree. And so it kind of sort of acts like a grep, kind of, sort of, right? So the status is not installed, configured, unpacked, half, okay, cool. And then the next one is whether or not there was any error, and then the name, and then the version, and architecture, and description. Cool. That works. So it's kind of sort of like using, L and grep, and so unfortunately it's not completely like grep. It doesn't have all the nuances. For example, if I wanted to say, okay, if I want to say VI, well, let's say, well, doggone it, it's not there. We don't have VI in our system. Well, we do. It's just not called VI. It's called Vim. So if I did this and piped it through grep VI, then I would get, aha, there's Vim and cool. All right, so it's not really grepping. It's just kind of a very simple way of checking to see. So if you want to know if something's installed, the little package management doodad is a good way of doing this. Okay, on page 166, they talk about the high-level package commands, which is yum, which is we're not using, and then the high-level APT guy. So there are, out in the world, there's this thing called package repositories, or as like we like to say, package suppositories. These are known locations where the machine knows to go get updates to things and where to go get new software that people have written. Cool. Remember we talked about the apt get update command? Remember that? We were supposed to run that like once a month and then run the update once a month and upgrade about once a week. Remember all that? Well, that's what that does. It goes out and says, hey, because someone has made a list of all the places where you can go get updates. And it changes every once in a while. Okay. There actually is a file where this is stored. So if I said cat, etc., apt sources list, this is the listing of all the places it's going to go. Basically, this is how the apt get update guy works. It goes there and it makes all this list. Cool? All right. Now, so let's talk about what these terms are, because some of these terms are kind of confusing, so let's just go through it. There's one called a release. And a release is a version of a package. So, for example, when we did, let's go back to the one where we did tree. Okay? So, that release is, 170, blah, 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 blah. A comment, which could be like, a component. If it's a component, it could mean that it's part of something, like it's a core package, or maybe it's optional parts, or something like that. And sometimes they're only security updates, which means I already know you have this. So we're not talking about offering you something new. We're talking about just fixing things that are already there. The architecture, which in our case is, if it's going to be 64, it says AMD. By the way, when it says AMD64, does that mean that I'm using an advanced micro devices CPU? No. That was just the name that they used to specify this is a 64-bit. It could be an Intel processor. That's not a brand. It's just an architecture name. And then the version. And so let's just do one more. I'm going to do somewhat similar to package, but I'm going to do apt list. So if I said apt list -- installed, okay? Boop. Isn't that pretty cool? So it talks about all this stuff. So let's go through one more. Let's look at one at the top tree. So Bionic is a cool name for the version of Linux that we're doing. Okay, it's kind of weird. Anyway, so that's a pretty cool way of looking at all of the things that are currently installed and whether or not it's, what the version number is and all the rest of this stuff. Now, there could be a thing called what's called a dummy package. And dummy packages, these are like prerequisites for something. You would probably never ever go and install these things on their own because they don't really do anything, but they're required for something else, right? Okay. So when we installed Tree, it could have said, well, you need this piece over here. And so these things called dummy packages. For example, do you remember when we did the apt get install and we told it build essential? Remember that? And maybe it was one called module assist. Those are prerequisite packages. In other words, no one installs those because they have commands that they want to run. It's just that they're needed so that you can do some other stuff. Okay. If this was the Windows world and I had a .NET application I wanted to send to you, this is the same as the machine saying, hey, you need to install the .NET framework, or you need to install the Java, runtime environment, right? These are components that need to be updated or installed if they're not there in order for the rest of the thing to work. But no one goes and installs them on their own just for fun. Cool. The next thing is talking about creating what's called a mirror site. Let's say, for example, that you don't want an awful lot of outdoor traffic. You don't want all your Unix machines phoning home, okay? You don't want them going to that list in the apt sources.list. You want to keep tight control over that stuff. So one of the things you could do is you could go get the updates yourself and put them on a server inside your local network so that when all your machines wake up and say, holy moly, I need an update, it'll hit the one local, which is going to be a hell of a lot faster than trying, 100 machines all trying to hit the internet at the same time to pull down a new Linux image, which is going to be pretty kind of big. So you can pre-process, so to speak. You can move the location to someplace local to your local network to speed things up. By the way, Microsoft Windows does this. It's called the Microsoft Windows Server Update Server, WUS, where it goes out and gets the updates and stores them local, and then has configured all of your machines in your domain to hit it rather than hitting Microsoft. It's a lot faster, and you're not burning up that precious resource of that slow link coming out of your organization. So that's what this guy does. You could set up a mirror, or it would pull down the updates, and then you'd reconfigure all the machines to point to the mirror instead. So that's probably a pretty good idea, isn't it? All right. So you may have noticed that when we boot our machine up, it has periodically will go and get updates automatically. I've had it. So when the machine comes up and I say, well, I'm going to go run updates. And so I type, the sudo apt get, update. And, or I should say upgrade. And he comes back and says, hey man, you can't do this because some other process has got that thing open. I'm going, oh yeah? Well, they've set up a cron job. You guys remember that from just the last video, I believe, where periodically you set things up so like every couple of days or every week or when you boot the machine up or something, it should go, ours is set up to automatically go get the security updates. Now, we didn't tell it to go get them all, just the ones that were security updates. Cool? All right. So that kind of sort of works. I'm going to skip a bunch and get down to page 178. Software localization. And again, I wish they'd choose a different term, because localization to me means something completely different, because I do an awful lot of Microsoft development and it confuses the heck out of me. But nevertheless, what they're talking about is making local configuration files. So if I'm going to tweak this version of Linux to have some other feature or some other, timeout for the, hey, I don't like the fact that the rel A time is done every 24 hours. I want to make it every 6 hours. Well, I want to make it happen on all the machines. So one of the things you want to do is to figure out how to do a configuration file so that all machines are all the same. That's the same thing. Because if you have way, way too many of these things, it can get confusing. Now, maybe not all of your machines are going to be the same. Maybe you're going to have a configuration file for developers. Maybe you're going to have another one for admins. And you're certainly probably going to have a different one for servers. So those are kind of... But of all the servers, you want them all to be the same. And of all the development, you want them all to be the same. And of all the admin machines, you want them all to be the same. So, in other words, it's okay for them to be different, but I want configuration packages, so to speak, to have multiple ones. It's very, very common you'd have like 3 or 4 configuration packages. Okay. So, one of the problem is I got a new update, and I'm thinking, well, I'll just pass that out to all of my machines, and good luck. To tell you the truth, that's probably not smart in the modern world. You probably want to have a guinea pig organization. In my world, we had an engineering group. And the engineering groups are typically smart folks who grew up with computers and are comfortable with computers. So if we had a new version of Word or new version of Patch or something on the operating system, we would send it to them first. And if they could figure it out and no one complained, well, then we'd send it out to the rest of the world. So we needed a guinea pig group. I'm just telling you. Okay. So most people do not release patches and new apps to everyone simultaneously. You kind of do them in stages. Okay. Kind of makes sense? Okay. So that's really as far as I wanted to go today. So that is the end of the video, and we'll see you guys again in some future video.